Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the live stream where we're going to fix some accessibility issues today. So, we have some beautiful weather here. Los Angeles, the weather's mostly always beautiful. Blue sky, it's sunny, it's about 66, so a little cooler. Don't worry, it'll be like 90 on Saturday. I don't know. Our weather's bouncing around all over the place. But I hope you're having lovely fall weather wherever you are, or I guess lovely spring weather if you're in the southern hemisphere. Um, all right, so we're going to pick up where we left off last time. And we were working our way through the accessibility issues that were reported when we did some of our internal testers at Aardvark tested our own marketing site. And we have issues that were found by our automated scanner, and we have issues that were found by a human tester working their way manually through the site. So we're going to fix a little bit of each type of issue. And we're overall in pretty good shape. We've closed out a lot of issues on this site. But of course, like any website, it changes all the time. Right? We're constantly modifying content that's there, adding new content. And even though we try our best, we are sometimes inadvertently introducing some new accessibility issues. So every week, I come in and work on these issues. I don't always do it live with the whole internet watching, but I do try to chip away at those and make sure that our public facing website is accessible for as many people as possible. And at the very end of the stream last time, we stumbled across this issue that's on the screen right now. So issue number 20, it was detected in an automated scan. And it is to ensure that the functionality provided by an event handler is available through the keyboard. And if I scroll down a little bit, we do have the description of what this means, some links out to some techniques for addressing this issue. But the main thing is that we have, if I flip over to our website, we have at the very bottom of our help center, at the bottom of each one of our guides, we have a little voting mechanism to just ask, how was this guide? We like to collect that information from people so that we can stay on top of any guides that might not be helpful for people, anything that might be outdated. Now, we do review the guides. We have an internal process to review every guide every so many months. So we have an automation that kind of puts those in front of our support team. And they go through, check each guide when it's time to come, when its time comes up. It's time for this guide to be reviewed. But then we also do pay attention to the votes that guides are getting. So if a guide gets a sad face vote, then we might come in and take a look at it and see if there's something we could do to improve it. But what we discovered last time at the very end of the stream was that this voting is not keyboard accessible. So if you tab through the page, and I think if I do it from down here, so you can see I just shift tabbed from the footer up and it went straight from the logo up here to the link to another help guide. And if I tab again, you can see it goes right back to the logo. So skips over that voting completely. So for keyboard only users and probably also for screen reader users, this voting mechanism is not accessible. So we're going to dig into that today and figure out how to get it fixed. So what I'm working on today is a local copy of our marketing site because of course you wouldn't want to do any work directly on the production environment. So I do have a fresh local copy. I just synced it about an hour ago, so it should be exact copy of what we have on production, unless someone has gone in there and made edits in the last hour. But it should be a pretty up-to-date version. And we're going to take a look at the markup that's marking up this little form and see if we can't get it fixed. so that everybody would be able to vote here. So I'm going to get started by opening up the console here, and let's take a look. Let's inspect. Let's just inspect this smiley face. Let's see what we find out. All right, so this is a Gravity form. So this is a WordPress website, and we are using the Gravity form plugin to create a bunch of different forms on the website. So contact us forms and different things like that. And that does include this little form. Now, one thing you'll notice is missing is there's no submit button on this form. So we have a plugin, like an add-on for Gravity Forms installed to capture partial form entries. So we have the button hidden. So if you come in here and just click on the smiley face, you'll just get this little, hey, thanks for voting. We're glad to hear this was helpful. And then that actually does get submitted, even though you didn't click a submit button. If you click one of the other votes, we do actually show you some more of the form. And let me shrink this down a little so we can see a bit more of that. Because we do want, if somebody is willing to share a little bit more information about why they didn't think the guide was great, it didn't help them with their situation, or the screenshot was confusing, or whatever it happens to be, it's really helpful for us to know what the problem was instead of just seeing a sad face, a sad face vote telling us something was wrong. So we do have, in that case, a form field and then a button to submit the form. But what we want to do now is figure out why these smiley faces are not keyboard accessible. So, because those should be kind of just out of the box, they should be accessible. So let me zoom this in a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see on the screen. All right, so basically these 30 emoji faces are just, set of radio buttons that's styled with CSS to look like just 3 little faces that vote. And everything seems to be in order. I have an input. It has an ID. It's got a label that's associated with it. And the label is what holds my my smiley face. And then I do have a screen reader text in there that also has text for the label. So things seem to be generally okay, but the when I tab to this form, it is skipping, or I can't tab to this form, I guess rather. When I try to tab to this form, it just skips right over it. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on. I'm going to actually open this up a little bit more because I don't think we really need to see much of the screen here. And we're going to just dig through the CSS for this radio button and see what we can figure out. All right, so looks like we just have some Gravity Forms CSS that shouldn't be causing any problems. I do see that it looks like this is Gravity Forms CSS. So yeah, so that comes from the Gravity Forms plugin itself. And I do see that it's trying to set the display to inline block, and that's crossed out. So I think that's a hint. We need to take a look and see how that's getting overwritten. So let's keep looking. And I think here is our culprit right here. So we have single guide, G-field radio, input type radio being set to display none, which is going to completely hide that on the page for everyone all the time. And that means that a keyboard user is not going to be able to tab to it, and as a screen reader user is not going to be informed that there are any form elements on the page. So let me just uncheck this in the browser, and now we can kind of get a better feel for how this form is put together and marked up. And we need to take a look at this and get this fixed because this is the display none that is causing the problem. So if I come back over here now, and I put my focus down here in the footer and reverse tab, shift tab, I go to the button, shift tab, I go to that link, shift tab to the text. input, and now I can see that indeed I can access with my keyboard. I can focus on those radio buttons. So let's take a look at this CSS. This definitely looks like our CSS in the Help Center styling guide. So we have a plugin called Help Center Styling, and that has a Help Center Styling CSS file. So we're going to go over to our code editor and bring that up and take a look at it. But it does look like on line 515, we have styles that are, there's a comment letting me know this is the guide voting form styles, and we need to go take a look at that. Okay, so let me, I have it over here, I think. Visual Studio, so plugins, Help Center Styling, and Help Center Styling CSS. So we have a plugin basically that just includes this style sheet. All right, so let's go to line 515, and here we are. Here is our problem. All right, so I think definitely the first thing that we want to do is take that display none off of there, and then we have to decide what we want to do instead. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that for right now. And yes, that does leave an empty selector, but that's not going to cause any problems on the page. And I am working on a local file, so I'll be able to refresh and see these changes immediately. And apparently Visual Studio also has an update, but I'm going to ignore that for now. I'm not going to make you all watch me update Visual Studio. All right, so we've gotten rid of that, and we already know what that looks like because I had disabled it in the browser, so now I can see the radio buttons. And think about it, like, is that really a bad thing that we can see the radio buttons? I don't think it is. So I'm in a little bit of a unique position that I think a lot of developers won't always be in, is that, you know, this is my company, so nobody's going to tell me that I can or can't do a certain design. And of course, like if you're working on a site where you don't own the company, then you're going to have to get sign off from somebody at some point, probably, on how things look. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can make this work. We could decide that we do want to leave the radio buttons hidden in some way, but we need to make that work with keyboard accessible. Or we could decide to show the radio buttons. That would be another option. And then I also have that screen reader text in there. And I think that actually for this case, I might want to show that screen reader text instead of hiding it away. So I think we want to make some adjustments, I think, to how this form gets marked up. And for many things for accessibility, there's often not a single right answer. Like there's not a single one way of how this can be fixed. Usually, most of the time, you have several different options, several different ways that something could be fixed. And which one you choose is going to depend on your own user base and what they're telling you that they like or want or need. It's going to depend on the design team or the owner of the company or your manager or, you know, a variety of different things. Like all these different stakeholders have a say in how an accessibility issue gets resolved. And what you can do is just ensure that whatever solution people kind of do arrive at and all agree on is that it is accessible, that it does work for keyboard users, for assistive technology users, for screen reader users, and that it's not introducing any new barriers. Or if it is, that the decision makers who have decided to do something anyway are fully aware of the consequences of that decision. So that is part of the work of being in accessibility. So part of it is actually fixing issues, and part of it is being an advocate and being an educator and making sure that everybody on the team fully understands consequences of decisions. So in this case, it's all me. So I'm in a little bit of a privileged position with this. So I can make whatever decision I happen to think is best. And the only person who can really weigh in or tell me that they don't agree is my business partner. So I think what I would actually lean toward for this particular case is maybe letting those radio buttons display, letting those be visible. And I might space them out just a tad more because I think it is a little bit confusing to tell exactly which radio button goes with which smiley face. So I think I'm going to lean toward spacing those out just a tiny bit more. And then I think what I would like to do is take the text that says great, not great. So I know the text is great for the smiley face. It's meh, just so you know, MEH for the flat face here. And then it's not great for the frowny face. And I think I'm going to actually have that text display on the screen for everybody. But not everybody's going to understand an icon. And to just make sure that that's really clear. So for this particular case, I think that's what the solution is that we're going to try to implement today. So I've already removed the display none from the radio buttons. So that's one step in the right direction. And then I don't know if you noticed, let's see here. Whoops. I don't know why my focus is giving me so much trouble, but if I go down here, I can move the focus to the footer somehow. The radio buttons, the focus indicator is getting cut off on one side, right? It should be a box that's all the way around the radio button, and it is getting cut off on one side. So we'll add a little bit of extra padding, I think, in the container to make sure that the rest of that can show. And that's going to help with spacing those out a little bit more to make sure that, this smiley face is very clearly closest to this radio button, and that there would be a bigger space on this side of the smiley face to spread that out a little bit more. And then ideally what I would like to happen is for the text, the little bit of text to show under the smiley face. So let's see if we can figure out how to make that happen. All right, so the first thing I've done is I've gotten rid of that display none that was causing the radio buttons to not be focusable at all. And let's take a look at what we've gotten next. So I want to look at the markup here. So I have my radio input, and it looks like it's mostly now that I've removed this display none, it looks like what's mostly here is CSS either from my theme. That's from my theme, yes. Either from my theme, because I'm out of CSS here, or from Gravity Forms. So all of it is, coming from a plugin somewhere. So now it's up to me. I have my special little plugin for Help Center styling. I'm going to go in there and modify the CSS and kind of see what I can change. So I have an input followed by a label. And currently inside the label, I have a font awesome icon that's being placed in there, and then some screen reader text. And I think that this icon and the screen reader text is actually coded into the Gravity form. So I'll have to log into this site here and we'll take a look and figure out exactly where that's coming from. But I think all of the HTML that's inside the label is actually in the Gravity form settings. And then that is all wrapped in an LI. So you can see when I hover my mouse over the LI in the code on the screen, you can see that it highlights the smiley face to show me that that's the one that I'm focused on. And then if I go to the other LIs, we can kind of see those get highlighted in turn. And we can see that the radio button is right up against the left side of the box, which is why our focus indicator is getting cut off there a little bit. And then I can see that the whole thing is wrapped in a div. And that whole thing in turn is wrapped in another LI. So we've got some nested lists going on here. And unfortunately, what I don't see here is a field set with a legend. And I did some quick research yesterday, and it didn't look like that was supported by Gravity Forms. So we might have to see if there's another way that we could deal with that. Because the ideal situation for a set of radio buttons is that you would have each individual radio button with its label, and then the whole set of them would be wrapped in an HTML field set tag. And that field set tag would have a legend. And that legend basically acts as a label for the entire group to tell me what the group is for. But what I have here, unfortunately, is an LI with a label that isn't applying to anything. So we'll have to see what we can do. So we'll deal with that situation separately, I think. And maybe we'll file a support ticket with Gravity Forms to ask about their support for some field sets so that their forms can be fully accessible. All right, so I think the first thing that I want to do is take a look at these LIs and get a little bit more. I think if I could do some left padding in particular, that would let me see my focus indicator fully, and it would help to space out those choices so that it would be more clear which radio button went with which face. All right, so let me just take a look at what I've got here. So G field radio, and then a G choice is inside that. So let's take what we got over here. So we have single guide, which I think is the, I think that's a body class on my guides. So if we scroll all the way up, body, single guide. Yes, it is right here. Oh, I can't highlight it apparently by itself. Oh, there we go. Now we can. So we have the single guide class on the body. And so that's where that's coming from. And then I'm just looking for any kind of G field radio and styling it. So that's probably fine because I happen to know that there's no way to, there's no way or there's no other forms basically inserted in the help center anywhere that would have radio buttons. So I don't actually need to do anything more specific than this. That's actually going to work just fine. Now, on a different site, I might have to make a different decision about that, right? If I had a different case where I might have lots of different forms with radio buttons and I only wanted to style one, I would have to get the ID of the form and make sure that I was only styling that one form. But in this case, I don't think I have to worry about that. All right, so I do see that we have style here for the radio button itself, which we have removed. And I think I might as well just delete this because I don't think I'm gonna apply any other style to just the actual radio button itself. And now I have the label, which I'm setting the color, and that's plenty dark. It's on a white background, so there's no contrast issue there. And then I am changing the color. Oops, here, sorry. I am changing the color of that label when the radio button is checked. So I think that's a perfectly fine thing to do. So of course we had to do something to indicate which one was selected, and we did change the color. Now that is not accessible. It is not accessible to have a color change be the only indication between a changed state. So I'm going to fix that by letting the radio buttons actually display, and then I don't have a problem with also letting the label change color. I think that's perfectly fine because it's just kind of a further reinforcement of what we can already see or hear on a screen reader is that the radio button is checked. Okay, and then it looks like we just have some other random styles that are in here. So our partial entry warning, that's our partial entry add-on for Gravity Forms that saves that when you click a vote without having to hit a submit button. And we have the label is display inline box with a font size padding of 0. But I don't think it's the label I actually want to style. I think it's that LI actually. So let me go back over here and inspect and take a look. So I think it's actually this LI. So let's get a feel for, it looks like maybe I could say G field radio LI to select that. So, oh, we already have it kind of here. So this single guide, oh, we already have it here too. Okay, so let me just duplicate that line. And let me try by adding a padding. Let's see if we left of, let's start with 1 rem and kind of see how that looks. I'm gonna come back over here and refresh the page. And I'm gonna shrink this back down a little bit, I think. We don't need that to be quite so big right now. Okay. So, oh, it's still cutting, oops, it's still cutting off my focus indicator a little bit, but it did space it out a tiny bit more. No, that padding did not apply. Okay, that was an optical illusion. So what do we have here? Why didn't my padding? Okay, so in the gravity forms at CSS, they're setting padding to 0. Important. Okay, so that's not very helpful. And I do see also that this says it's a legacy markup. So I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that we don't have a field set, or if that still applies in more recent versions of gravity forms. So that's something that we could look into too, to see like, is there a like updated markup that we could update to? Because I do see that that's legacy markup. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this selector right here and just steal the whole thing, go back over here and use that as my selector. And I have now made it more specific, right? So specificity, because I added the single guide body class in front of it. And I know that this form is only used on single guides, so I don't have to worry about this applying or not applying somewhere where I would expect it. Again, like you might have a different situation where maybe this form doesn't appear only on single guides, and then you'd have to adjust your CSS classes accordingly. And I think I might not have any option, which I hate doing, but to add an important on there to make sure that my padding does indeed show up, because they put an important in their CSS, unfortunately. So let's refresh and take a look at how that looks now. All right. Oh yeah, now I can see them. They're much more nicely spaced out. And then let me move focus. All right, now I can see my whole focus indicator around each of those radio buttons. And you can see that the little smiley face does change colors. And I'm going to say I need to double check the contrast on that, because it looks borderline. If that icon has sufficient contrast with the background. Well, it's probably passes 3.1 with no problem, which is technically all it needs to pass, but I'd like it to go ahead and pass 4.5 to 1. All right, so I'm wondering how many gravity forms entries I'm generating in the back end, but that's okay. It's just my local copy. All right, so the next thing I want to do is kind of take care of that screen reader text. And I think what I'm going to have to do is log in. So let me go ahead and open a new window here, and let's go take a look at what's going on in that gravity form. Oh, whoops, I need to go to the admin page and log in. So generally when I'm working on a WordPress site locally, working in code, especially when I'm working on, let me log in with one password here. When I'm working on it, I like to be logged out, because the logged in admin bar that shows up across the top of the screen, I'll pop over and open the homepage just to show you what I'm talking about. It's got its own little set of accessibility issues that are kind of annoying and throw you off. So yeah, so if I go over here, like this little bar shows up. So what I'll do is either work on the site logged out, or if you go to your profile, you can actually say to not show that bar. So this little checkbox here, so that it's not interfering with your accessibility testing on the front end. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off for right now. And let's go into our forms, and I think it's called guide voting. So let's go to, I think we want to just edit the form. And that's our very first field here. So let's take a look. And we see that our field label is how was this guide? And I have edit choices. And yes, so we have all of that HTML markup is in here within the guide itself. And sorry, it is cutting part of it off, but you can see that I have the Font Awesome icon markup here, and then a span with a screen reader text class. So it's hiding that text. I think what I'm going to do is actually leave the span there because it might be helpful for styling that text the way I want it to show up. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the screen reader text class so that text is visible on the screen. So let me just go ahead and get rid of that class. And so I will have to go in and make this change on the production site, right? Because this is in the database and I'm only working on the files for the local site. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're working on a site built with any kind of CMS, whether it's WordPress or Drupal or anything else, right? Some changes you make in the files and some changes you make in the database, and you have to keep track of which are which. And then you also have to keep track and make sure that if you're making a change like this, that you're on the right version, right? That you're doing it on your local copy and not inadvertently doing it on the production site. Not that that's ever happened to me. No, I'm lying. It's happened to me a million times. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and refresh this now. And okay, so we've got the little text showing up next to each of the faces. And I see Alan said that we can add an HTML like a field set by extending Gravity Forms with a plugin. I was wondering if I might have to do something like that. And I don't know that we'll have time to dig into that today, but I can do some research, I think, between now and then, as I don't think it's super interesting to watch me do that research. And then I can let everybody know on the next live stream what the solution is that I came up with, whether it's something I can do by just making this form no longer use the legacy markup, or if it's something I have to actually change in the code to get that working the way that I want. All right, so what I would like to do next is I want this text to kind of show up on the next line, basically under the little face. So I have my label and I do have some styles over there. Yeah, okay. Oh, so we have the style to just set the color. I see. And I now have my icon and I have my span. So I already have the label selected in my CSS. So I think I can just build on that selector and use it to select a span that's inside the label and set it to display block. And I think that might accomplish what I'm looking for, but let's go give it a try and make sure it looks the way that I expect. All right, so I'm going to go to here where we have this label and just duplicate that line. And I'm just going to add span onto that. Whoops, if I can type the right characters. I'm just going to add the span onto that selector and try to keep my CSS file organized, although it is a little bit messy already, isn't it? Okay. All right, so span. Let's just try a display block here and see what we get. Let's see if we have to touch it up at all. All right, save, and let's go refresh and see what we get. Okay, all right. That's kind of what I had in mind. I don't like how it moved I liked before how the radio button was kind of centered on the smiley face, and now I understand why it happened. It's because of the alignment that's happening here. So this LI, I'm going to assume it has, oh, it's a float. Really? I was going to guess it was a grid or okay. LI display inline block or display or flex box. I thought it would be one or the other, but surprise, it's not. Okay. How is this marked up? Wait, this input is margin. Is it just inline? Oh, inline block. Okay. Okay, so we're not using Flexbox or Grid or anything for this layout, but we could definitely get a little bit more flexibility out of it if we did. Okay, let's take a look. I do notice there's a top, margin top on that. That helps a little. Taking that off. Or we could make that negative, I guess. That's one thing we could do. Or we could switch this whole thing to use Flexbox. And again, like there's not a single way to do it. And which solution you pick is going to depend on what your personal preferences, what browsers you have to support, all of those kinds of things. Let's see. I think for now, I'm just going to try swapping out that top margin for maybe a slightly negative one. I don't like that it's pixels though. Oh, even 6 isn't enough. 16, which should be 1 rem, I think. Yeah, that should work. And I do see that it's got the browser in there. I don't want it to be specific to this browser. So let's see what I can grab. Maybe this one. Take that over. All right. LA input margin top minus 1 rem. Okay. I think that should get those lined up the way I wanted. Let's refresh and just double check it. I might come back to the, oh, that didn't work. Let's see. Why didn't it work? Oh, it didn't overwrite my, oh, did I write it wrong? No. It's overwriting my code here. Let me go look at that selector again. Legacy mark, oh, Chrome, I don't want that in there. Field checkbox, LI input. Let me actually grab this one and put that in front of it. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at what that looks like. I don't have a it still didn't work. That's annoying. Okay. Let's see. It's getting overwritten. Somehow this is more specific. Single guide. See markup. Oh, is it the Chrome browser? G-Field radio. Gosh, the specificity on those looks so similar. Okay. I can try adding type radio, I guess, to the input. See if that bumps the specificity up enough. Okay. Fun with CSS. Okay, finally it worked. Okay. So I think that's going to be okay for now. And I do just want to double check this color here. Let's check what the contrast of that is. Let's see, it's on the label. Color. All right. And contrast. Checker. Yep. I always end up with web aims. They're always the first one in the search results. Let's see what we get. Oh yeah. It's a little too low. So it does pass 3, which is technically for WCAG what it needs to pass, which, if I go down here, you can see graphical objects and user interface components technically just need 3 to 1 to pass. But I'd like it to be a little bit higher. So I might go in and adjust that color and use a different color from the, use a different color. And yes, saw the suggestion to use important. I try to avoid importance. They just make a lot of mess in the code later on when you have too many of those in there. So trying to just adjust the specificity on that. Okay, and then I think for next time, I'm going to look into, I'll report back and figure out what I can do about the legend and field set situation. We'll figure that out for next time, and I'll report back kind of what solution that I found there. I'll probably adjust that blue color to be just a different shade darker. But I think we have solved the accessibility issue here, where this couldn't receive keyboard focus. It couldn't get read out to screen reader users, etc. It was as though those radio buttons just weren't even on the page at all, because technically they weren't. They were set to a display none. So as expected, everything was working as expected. If I have something set to display none, I expect the browser and any assistive technology to behave as though it doesn't exist. And that's exactly what was happening. However, with a mouse, you could still interact, because these smiley faces, I don't know how I got into this weird mode. Okay, what is this? But escape doesn't get me out of it. Nothing gets me out of it. Refreshing. Okay. So mouse users could still interact with the label, which was behind the scenes, still checking the box. Okay, I'm still in this weird mode. I don't know what this is, or how I got in here. All right, if I close that, that's gone. Okay. So I can still check on the faces. I could check on the text. All of those work for changing that out. And I think we can go ahead and call that problem solved. So I have code changes that I need to commit, but then I have to remember, once it's get pushed to the production environment, I also have to go in and make that edit to my Gravity form to remove that screen reader only text that was there. All right, so I already got this here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do our commit here and fix guide voting radio buttons. Oops, spell it correctly. Not keyboard focusable. Oh my gosh, I can't type. Bull. Okay, there we go. And I'll commit that to I made a little branch just for accessibility fixes that I'm doing today, and push that. And let's go ahead and go back over here, and we can mark this one as fixed. And the next time a scan runs, it'll just confirm that that fix actually went through. So I just need to make sure that I edit that Gravity form and get that code pushed up before the next scan runs on Sunday. And we do have another instance of this issue. And so we're going to go check that manually. And it looks like it might be with a video player. So let's go take a look at this page here. I'm going to open that in a new tab. And this is going to open the production site, of course. And let's figure out, yes, so we have a video player, a YouTube player here that my keyboard skips right over. Do you see that? So my keyboard focus is up here on this link introducing WCAG in plain English. I hit tab, it skips right over my video player all the way down to the next link that's in the text. And it's skipping over the video player altogether. I'll Fortunately, because it's a YouTube video player, I don't know that I have much control over that. Let's take a look at what's going on in the code and see what we can figure out. Because I would expect, oh, and then we additionally have a performance plugin, maybe that is replacing the video player with a static image and a div with a class of play. So one thing I will be doing is confirming that that fix is coming from this Perf Matters plugin, and I will file a support ticket with them to let them know, please don't put a div with a class of play when you actually need a button, right? So if this was a button tag in the HTML, it would receive keyboard focus with no problem, and I would be able to press that button. And I'm assuming that was I click that button with my mouse, that it's going to replace this static image with a video player. We can confirm that in just a second. And I'm betting that they have some JavaScript on this. I see that there's a no script tag here. Yeah, so they have some JavaScript on this that is going to listen for that click event. Our scanner detected that that is happening, and then it's going to replace the static image with the video player. So let's just click that and make sure that that's what happens, because I think that's what's going to happen. And it does look like that's what happened. All right, let me pause. I don't actually want to play that. So yeah, so now that whole content got replaced with the actual iframe from YouTube. So if I refresh the page, I think we should go back to seeing. So this is a like a really common thing that we see across the internet, unfortunately, is developers using something like a div when what they actually wanted was a button, because it is interactive. And we could go in and add a tab index of 0 to that button, and then add a JavaScript listener that would listen not just for the mouse click event, but also a keyboard event, so that if I hit the space bar or the enter key on my keyboard, it would activate the button. But even if we do all of that correctly, it's still not going to work as reliably across different browsers and with different assistive technologies as if that were just a button tag, as it should be. So I will have to alert the developers of that plugin that they need to fix that. And I don't know if there might be some creative or clever solution that I could come up with that might replace that with some JavaScript or something when the page loads. But I hope I don't have to do that. So we'll see. I'm a huge fan of filing accessibility support tickets with people who make any kind of software, whether that's WordPress plugins or WordPress themes, or themes or plugins for any of the other online platforms, or desktop software, or any kind of web software. I file a lot of support tickets letting people know that they've got accessibility issues, because if we don't speak up, right, if we don't let people know that, number one, that this is something that we're noticing and paying attention to, and number two, that it's something that we want as customers of these products, then they're not ever going to be motivated to make a change. So I encourage everybody to always be aware and file some support tickets. And does it work? Sometimes I do have some pretty good success stories that I could share that have resulted from doing that. And I actually got invited to a dinner that was hosted by a SaaS service that we use as a company. And I was a little bit puzzled at why I was invited there. You know, they had this big group thing. It wasn't, it wasn't just me, but it was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 people that they invited. And when I introduced myself, they said, "Oh, you're the one who let us know that our thing wasn't accessible." So they even knew my name, like they remembered, because I was the one who had let them know about that. So please follow that example and go out and let people know that accessibility is something you care about and something you want and something that you expect from all of the products that you use, so that we incentivize them to make those changes. So I'm gonna start solving this problem by filing a support ticket with them and see what kind of response I get. If I don't get anything encouraging, then maybe on the next stream we could look at hacking together some kind of workaround that would make this work. But for now, my plan is support ticket. So let's go ahead and move on to the next instance of this. It's another video player. So let's keep going, and we got another video player. Okay, I think I'm seeing a theme here. Okay, if I get to the bottom of page 1 and it's all video players, okay, actually that's the end. That's all the instances of that issue that we have. So those are basically all of the YouTube videos that are on the site that have that problem, that we have a div where we should have a button. Okay, so let's go back to our list of issues. We have a few minutes left. Maybe we can find something that we could tackle. So since we all met last time, we were here on issue 20. And we had cleared out everything above this, but we can see that either some new issues were detected, which actually these look old. Actually, these look really old. And we did have one critical issue that popped up here, which I'm not sure where that came from actually. But let's click into it and take a look and see what we can fix. So we have a case where an image element is the only content of a link, but it is missing alt text. So it is true that if your image is decorative, it doesn't need alt text. However, if your image is the only content of a link, just like it says here, so I've got an opening and closing A tag, and the only thing in between those two tags is an image, that image is not decorative by definition. That is now a functional image that users can interact with, and it is required to have alt text. So let's go take a look at what it is and see what we can figure out. So it looks like this is an older issue because this is an episode of the podcast where it looks like our featured image maybe doesn't have alt text on it. So let's go ahead and go over to this page and take a look at what's going on. Oh, sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the chat. So let me catch up on that real quick. Okay. So a little talk about important, which I think we kind of already addressed a little bit. And yes, sometimes you do have to use important. There was a case a little earlier in the video where the plugin that I was trying to override had used important themselves. And so I didn't have a choice but to use it, but I do generally try to avoid it. And then Alan let me know that he has his own contrast checker. So I can try that one out next time I need to check contrast. And set inform inputs to cursor pointer. Yeah, that's an interesting one, I think, to have a discussion about, because by default, form fields do not get the pointer cursor, right? Which is the little like finger and thumb sticking out that we see when we move over a mouse or a link. Oh, we're not on that link apparently. What is happening? Why is this acting so weird? I saw it for a second. I don't know. Something wacky is happening here. Yeah, it's not even changing to that little hand on my regular links. Okay, I'll have to investigate that. But the little, one finger up, the thumb sticking out, that happens when you go over links. So that only happens on links. It does not happen by default on form inputs. And I remember maybe like 2 years ago reading, maybe it was on Reddit, like a very lively thread on whether or not we should force browsers to use the pointer icon on form inputs by default. And I don't think either way has a huge consequence on accessibility. Certainly, it's more of a usability question. And I don't I don't have particularly strong feelings either way. Thank you, Alan, for not being not making fun of me for making lots of typos. And the YouTube player is not accessible for screen readers. Yeah, unfortunately, I guess we could look and see. We do have the Able player installed on this website. And I think there should be, maybe that's a better solution actually. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm not sure how to say your name, ATTIQ. Thank you for bringing that up because you actually just reminded me that maybe I don't have to wrestle the with that performance plugin. Maybe I could just replace those video players. Instead of using the YouTube default player, I could use the Able player. So that is something I will definitely look into. And then Alan said points scored for them not being autoplay videos. Yes, I detest autoplay videos. So all right, so we're on this page and I'm looking at it and it's very obviously not styled and is not a page that we're actually using publicly facing, or at least not on purpose anywhere. So it is in our sitemap. So I am going to make sure that I remove it from the sitemap, and I'm going to go ahead and remove it from Aardvark as well. And I might even redirect any traffic that tries to come to this URL to the actual podcast page that we want people to use. So there is an accessibility issue on this page, but I'm not going to worry about it because I don't actually want people using this page at all. And I'm just going to stop testing this page and see if I can direct people away from it in a different way. And that is the only instance of this issue that I have to fix. So I can fix it by just not even dealing with that page, trying to make that page not even exist. All right, so I've got about 2 minutes left on the stream today. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next issue, where we just know we have something absolutely positioned, which means that our scanner cannot detect if the color contrast is correct. And I had mentioned this in last week's stream a little bit, that we do have an AI color contrast checker that you can turn on if you want to try it. It's in beta. If you want to try it on your account, you can just email our support team and they'll turn it on for your website. So you can give it a try. I did try it after the stream last time and it didn't work. And when I checked with my team, they reminded me that it actually doesn't work with the particular accessibility testing engine that I'm using on this particular site. Because we have changed our accessibility testing engine, our default one, twice now, trying to find a good solution that we like. And this is our original one from when Aardvark very first launched about a year ago, because of course I've been using this product from the very beginning. And so this site is on this old accessibility testing engine, and our AI checker doesn't work with that one. So if you sign up and add a new site, you'll be using one of our new engines and it will be compatible with the AI checker. So after we finish, I think, wrapping up all of the issues that this checker found and all of the manual issues that are in this one, I think now then we'll go over on some future streams and we'll look at our updated checker and see what issues the new checker found in there, and then our AI color contrast checker will work with the updated accessibility testing engine. And it looks like these are calling out our copy code button that shows up when we have code samples in our help center. So I can just pop over here and kind of show those really quick. I'm reasonably sure that they have sufficient contrast because they are white text on a black background. So this is not a contrast issue. So I can go ahead and mark that one as not an issue and close that out. And I might have to do it multiple times. Nope, we have a bunch of different issues in here. All right, so I think that's where we can pick up next time is we can keep working our way through this list of issues, figuring out what's wrong. So I'm gonna, before next stream, I'm going to change that blue color. I'm going to look into changing out that handful of YouTube video players with the Able player instead. And I am going to look into how I can get field sets and legends happening with gravity forms. So I will have reports back on all of those things, and I'm going to go ahead and file that support ticket with the performance plugin anyway, because I do think that they should be aware that they have a problem that should be addressed. So I'm going to also do that one. And next time we will just pick up with all of these absolute positioned items that it can't tell the color contrast on. And this one looks especially weird because why wouldn't I just use a top border instead of something absolutely positioned there? But we'll figure it out next time. So thank you so much for joining me today. And 2 weeks from today, we'll meet back here again. We'll figure out what happened with gravity forms. We'll look at Able Player, and we'll pick up fixing accessibility issues where we left off today. So I hope you have a wonderful 2 weeks between now and then. If you enjoy them, I hope you have a delicious pumpkin flavored beverage or pumpkin spice flavored beverage and or a yummy peppermint flavored beverage, which is my preference over the pumpkin spice type stuff. And we're starting to see some peppermint things around, so I'm very excited. But I hope you are enjoying your fall and having a really good week. And I will see you 2 weeks from today to fix more accessibility issues. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.